Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're at a point where we can project a return date right now. I think he's 10 weeks post-surgery. And I talked to him last week. He's doing great, and he's very encouraged by how he's recovering. But I think to put any kind of time frame on it right now is not appropriate. I think as we get to spring training, as we come into spring training, I think then we'll certainly be able to take a little closer look at it. That's that was kind of the original prognosis. That's when he would start. So yeah.
How much is that question kind of dictating your search this winter?
Well, I don't think that is. I mean, I think you go on kind of without Jimmy, and then not planning on it. Certainly to start the year, that's just not going to happen. So it's a spot that we have to account for as we start the season, for sure.
Craig, are there resources and to want to add a number one pitcher out there via trade or free agency?
Yeah, there's the want to, yeah. I think what we have to do is we have to to me, it's a puzzle of the innings, putting together the innings and how we're going to cover all the innings. I think, the better the pitcher, you feel like the more innings the guy can pitch, which has a, carryover effect to me to the rest of the team, to the bullpen specifically. So, I think we're definitely in need of innings. Yeah. And how we get those innings, starters, relievers, is kind of still what we're trying to sift through. Well, yeah. I mean, I think great starting pitching certainly, it makes your job easier for sure. The decisions don't happen as soon in the game; they tend to happen a little later in the game with real quality starting pitching. But I think we have to be open to figuring out different ways to piece together the 27 outs, and I think we were pretty successful at that last year in kind of deploying some guys in different ways. And, it certainly gave us another avenue to do that. So depending on how, our pitching kind of how we look for pitching and how we find pitching this winter, I think that'll kind of dictate, our approach to it next year.
One of the wild cards you have is Josh Hader because he has a background now in relief and start.
Yeah.
Is it difficult to decide how he'll be best served on your staff, or will any moves you make or don't make force them to help you decide?
Yeah, I mean, I think, really, look, we have not added any pitchers to the mix as of yet. And so, I think part of that decision kind of is reflective on what we add and who we add. And then, the other thing is that, he had a lot of success in the role we used him last year. Are there ways to expand on that? Can you use it at the start of the game in a role like that? So, we're considering everything right now with Josh, and I think, like I said, on December 10th, you feel like you got some time still.
How far off do you feel you are from the Cubs, or is it because the Cubs are making a lot of different moves it's really not a question you can answer until you see the makeup of their team?
I mean, what you're looking at, what I look at is, trying to put together, 90-win teams. I think that's what you're kind of trying to do, and put yourself in the mix or upper 80s win teams. I think that's what a franchise like we have to do where we're at right now. And then where that puts us at the end of the year, I'm not sure. The Cubs, I don't think, are really a factor in that. But, we put together a team last year that was an 86-win team, 1 win short of what it took to get into the playoffs, and so we're looking to just do a little bit better than that. I don't think the Cubs necessarily – I don't think they're a part of that, really.
You don't think there's any motivation for players having, established a team at the beginning of the year and then the second half not falling off and try to come back and prove you the best team?
Yeah, well, of course there's motivation for that, and the games against the teams in your division have a little extra meaning. The Cubs certainly have been the top of the division for the last 3 years, or 2 years. So it's they're the team to beat. I mean, there's no question about that.
Craig, let me get into the younger manager years ago. How has that helped you maybe in your job relating to the players, and also in any way was it anything about the job surprising to you when you first started?
Well, I think, the first year I took over, I think 9 of the guys in the team had been teammates. So that's a pretty high number. And so that's a different dynamic just to start with. I think the biggest thing the first time when you take over, I think, is the scope of your job. What you're responsible, who you're responsible for, the parties you have to account for and lead and manage and help be good at their jobs. I think that's the first thing. That's understanding that scope and getting it right and helping everybody be the best they can at their jobs is I think the first task.
And with the relatability to the players,
Well, I think that's just. As much as anything, I think the relatability is just you're current with it, if that makes sense. I think one of the tricks, I think, is as we get farther away from our memories, I don't care who we are, we're not as good at them. Our memories get worse, and how we remember things gets worse. We tend to be a little rosier, I think, in how the story happened. I think just being realistic about what it takes to be a Major League Baseball player, and I think being close to that, being a little more accurate with that is probably what the relatability kind of speaks to.
Craig, when you talk about a shift in managers and managerial styles from the Leyland and Baylor you played for to guys who it now looks like look more like you in terms of communication skills up and down and working with the front office. The guys have been hired this year, Martinez, Cora, Callaway, all sort of in the Dave Roberts, Craig Counsell model as communicators and implementers rather than kind of wing-it personalities.
Yeah, well, I would look. I mean, Jim Leland was a manager for a long time because he was really good at being a manager. He was really good at his job, and I think those guys last. Those guys keep managing. You have to. He had a lot of success. He was really good, and people recognize that. Oh, 100%. Oh, 100%. I think that that part of the game it's changed a little bit, but it's really all we're doing is we're sharing information more. That's all we're doing. We're just sharing information more, and it's better communication is what it is, in my opinion.
You're getting more information from above than he ever got, and now it's on you to implement it below, which is kind of a different role than even a third to half of them. Managers. There seems to be two camps of guys who are like, okay, that's good, but I'm going to do this, and guys whose role it is to say, all right, this is what the front office wants me to do now. How can I find a way to do it that doesn't alienate my players, that leads to the best result? That relationship now seems almost more important than the strategy.
Well, I don't think. I think getting the players to be the best is still your most important job. 100% that's your most important job. There is more information coming. The game has really undergone a great revolution in the information, and my thought on it is really just that I have to be able to process it and dissect it, and then we have to have I have a conversation with the front office about it. I have a conversation with the players about it, and not all of it certainly gets through, that sifting process and that questioning process. And I think that's part of my job, is that it doesn't all get through. The best and the brightest of the ideas get through and make us better.
It doesn't get through because it maybe doesn't apply in the way they think it does, or your guys.
It doesn't apply. It doesn't apply to the players. It's not. It can't be implemented by the players in real time as fast as the game happens. But a lot of times it's, a front office has to stay on me to keep pushing the idea on me to say, wait, this can be, and we get there. And I think that's just progress, and that's progress, and that's good. I think that's a good structure in a company.
Craig, speaking of managers, one of the guys that he played for as a Buck Showalter, and he has, and there are three other guys here who also played for him. Was there anything special you learned from him as a player? I know you only played for him for a year. Was there anything that you saw from him that you made him?
Well, Buck was. The preparation, I guess, was then the details were. There was no detail that he had not accounted for. If you had thought of it, he had thought of it long before you did. That's the feeling I'd always got from Buck. So there was never any surprises for him. He wasn't surprised by anything. And it was, that's always a lesson. I think when you see a manager like that, you're like, this guy. He's thought of this. He's thinking of it. If there's 30 hours in the day, it felt like he had 30 hours to think about it instead of, because he knew everything that was going to happen.
Craig, what are your thoughts right now at second base? I know you have internal options with VR and Sogard and maybe Hernan.
Yeah.
But you guys looking around too to see if that can be strengthened or how? And just what's your thoughts on VR after one good and one not real good season?
Well, I think we're in a really good place at second base, because I think we have very good options, and I think there's also a lot of there. But at the same time, there's obviously players available at second base. So, I thought, how Neil played last year for us, what was pretty. He played very well for us the last month of the season. Made a big impact on us. I think he's a real balance to our lineup. The little bit of versatility helped as well in some spots. Jonathan, he had a tough year. Guys have tough years. He has a really big year under his belt too. And so, that leaves us at we'll see. I think he's got something to prove, certainly. You can't say exactly what to expect. But I know that season he had in 2016 was a season that, certainly earns him the second base job.
As you think about your players who went forward last year, for Orlando Arcia, a young guy, a pretty internally confident guy, how important was it to have that offensive year? What did that offensive year do?
Well, he had a very good offensive year. I think he probably didn't surprise himself. I think he surprised some other people of how he played. He's got a lot of room left to grow offensively, and I think he knows that. And I still think he has, he's got steps forward left to take. And we're talking about a 23-year-old player that he's just getting started, and there's room for growth for sure. So he's, I think obviously the ball strike recognition is a step to me that just grows with experience, and he's a prime candidate for that to continue to grow as he ages.
Because of metrics these days, Craig, do that dynamic changed at all because of some of the extra information that you have and how you want to handle your bullpen and
No, I still think there are managers are still stylistic. They still have leanings and biases and players they go to in certain situations. So I still think, especially in the division when you're 18, 19 games against a guy, who is managing the team matters. As far as what I'm thinking about during the game.
Craig, what are your thoughts these days in center field? You have some options. Late last year when games were really important, Brett played
Right.
center instead of Keon. What are you thinking there in center right now with the options that you have?
Well, it's right now it's the position that we have, really good depth at, and they're young players. Certainly, you have to throw Lewis Brinson into that mix for sure. So, I know we have 3 good young players, and I know, 2 years ago in 2016, we had about 8 guys in spring training that we didn't know if any of them could play center field or who was going to play center field. I feel like now we have 3 very good options. So, we'll have to make a decision, and only one guy can obviously play, but that's a place of strength for us for sure, and that's a nice position. That's a really important position to be strong at. So if there's a spot that is maybe a little undecided, but that I think I'm most comfortable with, that's it. I know we're going to have a good option there. Someone will emerge, someone will take it, someone will earn it, and we'll get really good production out of that position. Or it might be shared, and then there's a good chance it could be shared. I think it would be hard to share with 3 guys, yeah. I don't think that would be, yeah.
You would want them to
No, I can't see how that would be productive, yeah.
But you could share it with 2 guys, especially because
Certainly, yeah.
some
Yeah.
innings in left field, too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, sticking to number 3, 3 years ago when offense was way down, a lot of people were talking about how they think that speed is going to become a big part of the game like it was in the 1970s.
Yeah.
It turns out that didn't happen.
Right.
They got power. How important is speed now going forward? And how does that factor into your ball club and your ballpark?
Well, I think it's a good question because I thought I really felt like speed would be a big part of the game too. I still think athleticism is a big part of the game and is a really important thing to have on teams. It's the problem is it's one of the harder things to really define the value of it. It's hard to get to a number that puts the value on athleticism. It's hard. We pointed out to our players often, we're an aggressive running team. What does the threat to run do to a pitcher? What if Jonathan Villar's on first base and we get to a 2-0 count because the pitcher was in a slide step delivery, and the guy gets to a 2-0 count and hits a double in the gap. There was no stolen base there. There was no nothing happened from that perspective. But was it the threat to run that got the hitter in the 2-0 count and got him in a good pitch to hit? So that's why I'll always value athleticism, and I think we'll always push the envelope in the running game because I do think those threats, although tough to quantify, matter.
Craig, you had a phrase you used a lot about your group last year, that they enjoy each other's company. When you played, you were a little more reserved than some of your players were, and you certainly didn't have some of the things going on in the dugout that goes on in your dugout and also in your clubhouse, too. But it looked like something that really worked for your team and made them have each other's backs.
Yeah.
How did you as a manager come to an understanding of what was acceptable to you on the enthusiasm meter?
Yeah.
Just how did you come to a reckoning with all of that?
Yeah, I mean the players. our guys did a fabulous job of that. You trust them. I mean, it's as simple as that. I trust them. They know the lines. You know what I mean? And I think it's really a mutual trust. You know, we trust each other to know where the line is.
Did you ever see something that made you uncomfortable, or maybe you?
Well, there's stuff I wouldn't have done. Yeah, but that's I think that's part of kind of understanding yourself. You know what I mean? Like it's that's not me, but that was Orlando Arcia. And I want Orlando Arcia to be himself, and that's how he gets to the best version of himself by understanding that it's okay to do that, and we celebrate it, and we had and it turned into fun. It was fun. And the guys were better players because of it, I think.
Another thing that's unusual, a little bit unusual, maybe this is the way it's evolving on many teams, is a lot of the, for lack of a better word, juice from your clubhouse comes from your group of Latin players.
Yeah.
And guys already are emerging as almost leaders like Hernan and even Aguilar.
Yeah.
Is that unusual to see the Latin players kind of be the fulcrum of the camaraderie?
Yeah, I don't think. No, I mean I don't think you. I always say that this is like a soup you put together, and the ingredients are always a little different. When we show up for spring training next year, the soup's going to be a little different. The leaders are the leaders. The leaders they kind of rise to the top, and I think a guy like Hernan, he's a leader. He's got leadership qualities. He's a connector of people. He knows baseball very well. He's got a great feel for the game. And those people will shine in the clubhouse and on the field and in the dugout. And it's just what happened.
Do you think Garcia's eventually going to get to that?
I think, yeah, I certainly think he will. Yeah, because there's a freedom and a passion and a love for the game and a smile on his face as he plays that people will be drawn to.
Is that the starting pitching focus? When you get up there and Dave and those guys, how focused are they on the bullpen?
Well, as I say, putting innings together to put together a season is what our job is. That can be done in the bullpen, and you can put innings together in the bullpen. That maybe lessen the need for a guy that you can count on for the huge number of innings. So I think really it was a big piece of our success. We lost a lot of games in the bullpen, but really it was a function of us playing so many close games. And in the end, really, our bullpen was a place that we really leaned on heavily, and they've got lots of outs. The traditional reliever got lots of outs for us, and it was a successful formula.
Was Corey Canelo one of the stories of your year? I'm not sure if people in Milwaukee realize how good he was.
Yeah, we had. I saw us as by the end of the year we had three relievers who, we could put in multiple inning situations, could handle high leverage situations, could handle right-handed, left-handed hitters, and it made us very, very tough late in games.
Was that Canavos, or was that
Yeah,
Hager?
yeah.
Do you think expanded rosters are inevitable by the way the bullpen situations are going? And that it appears managers would and will need 8 and 9 relief pitchers.
I don't think that's a good idea. I think the roster, personally, the 25-man roster is it's a challenging roster, and it should be a challenging roster for clubs. So I think it's a really good number. I think it's the right number. I think September's number is out of hand. I think it's a needs to be addressed.
But from the evolving use of bullpen
Well, I mean, that's just because we want to use more relievers doesn't mean we should get more players. I think our challenge is that that's part of the challenge of this equation is how to be effective with them, how to keep them healthy, how to keep them effective. That's part of the challenge of this question, and I think it should be a challenge. You know, the value of the great starting pitcher, it still should be there. And if you start, to me, adding to rosters, it takes away of the value of that guy, because the great starting pitcher still is the best pitcher. You know, that's and he should be.
Last year in camp, you do catching open to Pena, Bandy, and Susak. Let it be a three-man competition. And Susak got hurt, and the other two sort of emerged.
Right.
Now that Vogt is also in the equation, how do you look at? And obviously Manny broke through.
Yeah.
How do you look at your catching pitcher? Is it still Manny and Vogt the top two guys?
Well, I mean, I look at it not that differently than I guess I would have last year. I think, you know, we have to acknowledge, I'd certainly acknowledge what Steven did and what Manny did last year. And look, Jeff Bandy's season was, you know, in the first half of the year when we, finished 10 games above 500, Jeff Bandy was a big part of that. He got into an awful slump. But he was also very good for us the first 2 months of the season. So, we have three catchers. It's depth. You know, depth is important. It doesn't let the pieces fit exactly where you want them to fit all the time, but depth allows us for unforeseen circumstances. And I think it's so important in a course of a season. It sets a big floor for who you are as a team. And I think, so having three guys there, having three guys in center field, it's certainly, I think, done by design.
A lot of teams would like this, but how important in your situation if you could get a younger, controllable front of the rotation than starting pitcher?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have some, which I think puts us in a pretty good spot. I mean, do you always want more? Yeah, you always want more. But we have some. Yeah. We have, to me, three guys. And when we have a couple of young pitchers that are pretty darn exciting. And then we have a guy named Brent Suter who just keeps getting people out. Nobody wants to talk about him, but he keeps getting people out. He's pitched very well. And then he's pitched very well in big games. We give him the ball in some big games, and he's pitched very well. So, look, the loss of Jimmy Nelson, it hurts. You know, it's a gut punch. It hurts, and it feels like it. You know, I knew when it happened. I said it's going to hurt more in 2018 than it does for 5 starts. We can cover 5 starts in September with expanded rosters, but in 2018, when you go back to a 25-man roster and you lose a guy that's pitching into the 7th inning, 3 times a month or through the 7th inning, that's when it hurts.
Is Woodruff firmly in the picture for your rotation in spring, or still got to wait and see?
No, I would say he's certainly in the picture for sure. Yeah, I mean he I think he got a really appropriate and valuable amount of experience last year, and it really sets him up, springboard to be able to springboard into this year.